Love and compassion should rule the individual, the community, and the nation. Compassion is not self-serving. Compassion is more concerned with helping to heal and support others. Compassion sets aside the negative desires of the false self, the ego-centered personality, to perform the greater good for all minerals, plants, animals, and people. Selfless service is indeed a work of the heart, which is the center of decision within the pure self. Mercy and compassion may be extended from the heart in cases where justice is blind and the law of cause and effect is too exacting. As God rules the universe, divine compassion may sometimes set aside the working of the law in a divine act of grace and forgiveness, shape-shifting events and people to redeem a misguided soul. Compassion is indeed the lion heart, the warrior king, the individual performing selfless service to help others mentally, physically, and spiritually. This is the one whom God loves to work. There's a couple of things in there that I underlined when I read this. And the first thing, compassion is born in the heart of the pure self. And we have been hearing here at Sunburst about the pure self for a long, long time. Norm, the founder, talked about the pure self extensively when he was with us in the physical. And for years, I kind of struggled with my mind trying to understand what the pure self really is. And I think to a certain degree, until I experience the pure self in the spirit, I'm probably still going to be ruminating on what is the pure self exactly. But we know that our souls were born out of the great I Am and sent out into creation. And initially, our first body is what is referred to as the causal body or the thought body, which comes directly out of divine spirit. And then the next body is the astral body, which is an energy body. It's more than just thought. It has energy in some kind of form, lifetrons. And it's also considered the emotional body. And it contains the interdimensional tunnel that we travel with between lifetimes. And then the third body is the body we find ourselves in, the body made of atoms, the physical body. And while we're in these physical bodies, we are also existing in the astral body and in the causal body. We are never completely separated from them. They are as much a part of us as the body that we find ourselves in, but we just cannot, for the most part, remember them. We are compressed down so far into this physical form that we can't quite perceive these higher states of consciousness that we have and that we're part of, and they are a part of us. But because they are a part of us, during different times we can feel the influence of those energies from those higher states of consciousness. We feel maybe just, it might just happen for no apparent reason, or maybe we are praying deeply, or maybe we're walking in nature, or maybe we're meditating. But suddenly we will feel an expansion of consciousness. And this expansion of consciousness is connected to these higher states of beings, these different bodies that we are part of, and they are part of us. It's phenomenal when you think about it, because if we don't take time sometimes to think about these things, because we are so condensed down and we have such a narrow view, it's easy to forget what incredible beings that we are. These incredibly powerful spiritual beings that have never lost connection, but are only forgetting about it while we're here in these bodies. And so no matter what happens with our soul, as our soul goes through different experiences in the astral form and in the physical form, and our souls may go off on great adventures in the universe and in the different dimensions of consciousness, and might, in a sense, forget its true nature, not just in the physical form, but in these higher realms even. But at the heart of the soul, no matter what happens with that soul and no matter where it goes, no matter where we find ourselves, this pure self, this pure part of the consciousness that our souls came from, is always residing and always completely intact within us. And we can access it. And that's why we have our spiritual practices, so that we can open up and try to listen for that voice from within, for that pure self. When we touch the pure self, or the pure self influences us, it's much easier to feel and to express the different virtues that we talk about in our Sunday services. It's much easier to feel compassion when we're not just in this telescopic view, or microscopic view, I should say, of life. And it is a blessing that we have been given these teachings through many teachers going back, but Yogananda talked extensively about the causal, the astral, and the physical forms, and his teacher, Sri Yukteswar, talked with him about them, and Norm shared that with those principles with us as well. The other thing that I underlined in Norm's writing was forgiveness. And it just made me, when I think about forgiveness, he basically says compassion is the gateway to forgiveness. To really have forgiveness for someone else or for ourselves, we have to have this feeling that doesn't come from thinking about it, but it rises up within us. And to be able to set aside our own hurt, or whatever it might be, and be able to feel compassion towards someone else, and to have forgiveness for them, it might be one of the greatest gifts that we have here as human beings. Because it is, I'll just say, it feels like a very godlike quality to be able to do that. Because divine spirit doesn't hold grudges. You know, there's just nothing sweeter than the feeling of the sweet feeling and sense of forgiveness. It releases you, the person who is holding someone else accountable for what they feel has been a wrong to them. It's a gift that goes both ways, but I think it's mostly a gift that is received by the person who gives it. And then I was thinking about, well, that's all fine and good to feel compassion for people that you've had a hard time with. Something very horrible may have happened. And so I was remembering the kind of the thing about if you reach across the zodiac to the opposite sign of Leo, it is Aquarius. And the virtue of Aquarius is charity. And so I would just think, what if we're not feeling compassion and we want to? What can we do? We have the choice to, even if we're not feeling it, to send a prayer, to send a card, to send a gift, to just allow ourselves to get beyond our own hurt and do something even though we're not really feeling it, because that will make a difference. Because practicing charity is also a virtue, and it will feed into our ability to develop compassion around that situation. And then I wanted to tell one little story that has been significant to me over the years, having to do with compassion. And, when I came to Sunburst, there were so many people who were having visions, visions of the sun and visions of this and hearing these messages. And that was never part of my path to have any kind of a visual thing like this. But my experiences have been more about feeling. And also when I was young, and probably now even too, I was really way too sensitive about what people thought of me. I don't know if any of you have that at all, maybe not, but it was really, I didn't know it at the time how intense it was, but I was living out at the what we call the orchard out in Willamette Valley. It was a piece of property. And John Kitty was in charge of the orchard. He was what we called the community leader. And he asked me early on one day, when shortly after we had arrived out there, we were out there, some of the first folks out there. And he asked me if I would be willing to do work meetings, which was kind of a big deal. I was not even 20 years old yet. I was 20. I was young. I didn't know if that was something I could do, but I agreed to take it on. And then later, I found out that he had asked 2 or 3 other people before me who had probably wisely declined. But anyway, I took it on, and it was a big job. We had, I'm going to say 50 acres. I think that's right, of apple trees that had not been pruned in 5 years, and there were suckers that grow out of the ground that come up from the apple tree roots that were taller than the trees, and the trees, it was a mess. But we took it on, and every day we would organize the crew, who's going to do the pruning and who's going to do this and who's going to do that. And that was my job, was doing that and trying to keep all that going. Anyway, we got the orchard pruned before the sap flowed and really impressed the neighbors, and it was all good. But near the end of that summer, which would have been 1973, I overheard one of the members, one of the Sunburst members, complaining to John about the way that I was doing my job. And I was way too sensitive. It was really, really hard for me. And so I got up. I remember where I was. I got up and I just took off by myself, and I walked back to the Willamette River. And it wasn't running. It was dry at that time. And I sat down to meditate, and I was just saying, Spirit, I don't want to do anything that's going to make somebody else feel bad or uncomfortable or make their life harder or anything like that. I just really, really don't. And I was sitting there with my eyes closed, and I was meditating. and feeling so upset. And all of a sudden, I felt a hand, I mean, really a physical hand on the top of my head. It was just like taking my hand and putting it on my head, just like that, squeezing it. And I was kind of shocked. And I took it in for a moment, and then I thought, well, I wonder who's standing here. And I opened my eyes, and there's nobody there. But I also noticed immediately that all of this pain, self-inflicted pain that I was going through, it was just gone. It was just completely gone. Whatever this person had said, it was not having any effect on me anymore. And it was just released. And I felt actually better than I had in a long time. And I just feel like that was an act of compassion by somebody. I've got my kind of my suspicions of who it might have been, but I don't really know who it was. But they lifted that burden that I was feeling at that time, and it was a real act of compassion. I'm sure some of you have had similar experiences in one way or another. Maybe not exactly like that, but maybe. Well, let's go into 15 minutes of quiet meditation now. And April's going to lead us into meditation with the singing bowls.
and light. I am that I am, full of love and light. I am that I am. My life is filled with grace. Thank